there's this book, Ready Player One, which describes a future where the environment is destroyed and people are fleeing into a virtual environment, living more like in this VR game. And I think for some reason after the movie came out, Mark Zuckerberg just read the book or watched the movie, and I said, okay, that's cool. Actually, I invested multiple billion of dollars already in VR equipment, so I think I want to create make this book reality. And that's how everything came actually to be.
But if we take away all this marketing speech, it's actually just the next generation of XR experiences. And one thing that is actually true is this connection to the so-called Web3 infrastructure. Welcome to the Innovation Engineer podcast, your favorite place for picking brains of your favorite engineers. So grab your nerdiest mugs, fill it with a beverage of choice, and enjoy. My name is Tarek.
And my name is Waschi.
And today we ask ourselves, are the Metaverse and Web3 legit?
And let me just jump in and answer it straight away for you. No. So some people claim actually it's like the future of the internet. And I would just say it's a company-made hype. So, a lot of stuff just emerges naturally. And this is just a thing. Mark Zuckerberg came on the stage and said, okay, now it's a thing. And multiple companies jumped onto it. There is no real application right now. And in my opinion, there is this book, Ready Player One, which describes a future where the environment is destroyed. Like our environment will be in some years. And people are fleeing into a virtual environment and are living more like in this VR game. And this is the book and also the movie Ready Player One. And I think for some reason after the movie came out, Mark Zuckerberg just read the book or watched the movie. And I said, okay, that's cool. Actually, I invested multiple billion of dollars already in VR equipment. So I think I want to create make this book reality. And that's how everything came actually to be. And I would say in the next at least 10 years, there will be no metaverse. It's like Second Life, a really old game just in VR. That's what Mark Zuckerberg's imagined. And I would say it's not legit. It's like something people came up to, a new hype. Like if you are on the hype curve, it's just getting traction. And that's my opinion.
That's very, very good. And I thank you for this really good introduction. I personally would say it is legit, but, and there comes the but, the metaverse is a marketing term. And you're totally right. It comes just from Mark Zuckerberg trying to advertise his platforms, his hardware, his games and everything. But I think the things that are meant with the concept of the metaverse are actually coming. And I think he simply wrapped this marketing term over the concepts that are going to be developed in VR, in the VR and XR space in the next 10 years, no matter what. And so he kind of claims this term and this new world that we are going to for his company or for his initiatives, even though it technically has nothing to do with what he's doing. This is simply the evolution of hardware and software. And I think if nobody would have claimed the term metaverse, nobody would doubt that we will use shared virtual spaces and that we will going to have better VR hardware and that there will be a thing like VR meeting rooms and remote learning and decentralization. Everything, all these things, they are real and they are going to come. But without this marketing term metaverse, nobody would doubt this. But exactly as you just said, now that we have this marketing machine and people connecting the dots of the so-called metaverse with Ready Player One, now people say, no, of course, in the next 3 years, there will not be like a Ready Player One dystopian future. But this is not what the metaverse is supposed to be. This is like the disconnect between the marketing term and the marketing machine and the actual technical innovations that we are going to see.
Yeah, I want to jump right into standardization and Web3, which is really interesting because we already had Web3 again, I think like 10 years ago, right, because this term is claimed multiple times. But
yes,
like I think in one of the last episodes we talked about VR and AR, what's the state of the technique, and
Yes.
we are engineers, so we should talk about standardization. But first, maybe we should define for everyone what is actually the metaverse, what's meant with it, because I don't think everybody has seen or read Ready Player One, right? So go ahead, define it.
Yeah, so I think we can actually find a very easy interpretation of the word metaverse, even though of course it is not clearly defined, and it is just like a wrapper around everything that is happening with VR and AR. And that's why I personally don't like the term metaverse, because it creates imaginations of people of some futuristic cyberspace or something. The reality is, and I heard a talk of a product manager of Meta who was actually trying to define what metaverse means. And he was very technical in terms of the things that we are calling today XR, meaning virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. Those are the things that will grow together to shared spaces and shared experiences. And basically that's it. That's what they claim as the metaverse, the next generation of VR and AR hardware experiences and platforms. And what we expect in this next step of evolution is that we will use it in a more collective way, meaning that we are going to see more open standards evolving, so platforms will be able to connect to each other. So this idea of having multiple users sharing a virtual space or a virtual office or a virtual couch, for example, or virtual learning experiences. All of these things that we already see today in prototypical applications, this is what they will be claiming as the metaverse. And so when we see all these startups popping up and companies already claiming we are a metaverse company, what they are basically saying is, yeah, we do something with VR and AR, and therefore we will be part of the metaverse, which is true, because they are doing something with VR and AR, and they are doing some kind of innovation, something new, right? And so it's very easy to claim we are metaverse, and therefore people like it because they believe this hype and believe that metaverse is now something shiny and something very new. But if we take away all this marketing speech, it's actually just the next generation of VR and VR, or let's say XR experiences. And one thing that is actually true is this connection to the so-called Web3 infrastructure, where we see more and more decentralization, smart contracts, more efficient blockchain technologies, and this is going to be more and more important. And the reason why this is somehow connected to the metaverse is that Web3 provides decentralization of data and calculations or contracts programming. And this helps with this whole idea of open standards, open platforms, and decentralization of ownership and processing. Right now, we have like the one server somewhere for my VR game, but the moment we want to share assets, experiences, configurations, we need this somewhere in a decentralized space. And this might be IPFS, this might be some blockchain, or we have assets still on centralized servers, but managed by decentralized ledgers, right? So in terms of we have some validation of assets and ownership done through the blockchain and then loaded somewhere from a distributed content network or something like that. And so from this perspective, it's very easy to define metaverse by simply exchanging the word for shared VR, AR experiences. And then all the magic is gone, right? Then it's simply what we all expect from the next generation of XR experiences to be.
Blockchain again. So, when first, for those who don't know IPFS, it's Interplanetary File System. It's a decentralized kind of web. So we once hosted our website on IPFS, so you still needed a bridge to get the name resolution and other stuff. But in the end, it was like the good old file sharing, but for websites, decentralized. You don't need a server anymore. Coming back to blockchain, what you just said.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Let's talk about IPFS later, because I was already like coming up with so many things that I want to talk about with IPFS.
Okay, let's do a dedicated episode for IPFS because it's one of the super coolest topics ever. And when we colonize the moon and the Mars, like our website will be served from there. It's so cool. Coming back to blockchain, it's Bitcoin. Bitcoin was invented in 2008 and really started around 2009. So that's like over a decade ago. And do you know how much, and I was promised like a new currency, and do you know how much I used like Bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies, that's what they're called, to buy stuff in the past decade? Nearly none. So like in the Axel Springer plug and play accelerator, there was like a Coke vending machine, like a vending machine where you could use Bitcoins to buy like beverages and stuff. So because it was like a startup incubator and so on. And obviously they lost the private keys, so the Bitcoins are lost. And it's still on some, I don't know where they put it actually. It's gone for years now. That was one of the few applications I ever saw in reality where you could use Bitcoins. And then now I think Pornhub or some other website was blocked by Visa and MasterCard. So you could not use any credit card to pay for your adult service subscription. So they changed to crypto. That's another one of the few places I saw. But again, this is like over a decade ago. I think it will be 2 decades before it will be used for currencies. And it was decentralized. It had the big problem of being totally anarchistic, so not democratic. So if you have a system where no government and no like democratic voted government can do any changes, influence stuff, this is anarchy. This is not like democratic stuff. So I fear the same for other technologies. So first of all, if the metaverse and all this stuff gets standardized, it will still has the same issue with VR equipment. It will take multiple years before there's anything real in there. And the other thing is, how do you govern it? If it's decentralized, you have the same problems again. And the issues we have right now with like mobbing, violence, and so on, will be also in there. So this will be an issue. If we move more of our social life into VR, this will become a bigger and bigger problem right now, because this will be an international thing, right?
Yeah, but all of the things that you said, they are all true, but it's the same thing when we introduced the internet to the world. And a lot of things moved to the internet, and the internet brought a lot of problems with it. And not everything is happening on the internet, but we already have it. And the same thing is going to happen with, and I'm not sure if I should now call it the metaverse or VR experiences. There will be a lot of problems. It will take a lot of time to use this in the standard way, but not everything is going to happen in the so-called metaverse, because as with the internet, we do a lot of things with the internet, and there are a lot of conveniences and standards, but not everything is happening in the internet. And so the same thing will happen with the metaverse. Will everyone walk around with AR glasses on their head? No, of course not. But if I like to have one, I can get one, and then I can use it for those experiences wherever it makes sense. And if I want to, search for the weather of tomorrow, I might simply take out my phone or ask Siri or whatever. I don't need to enter the cyberspace and do some fancy AR modifications of user interfaces simply to ask what the weather is going to be. So there will be those use cases which make sense, but not everything is going to happen in this Ready Player One. What was it called?
I forgot the name.
This place where they are going. Yeah, right. So what they were envisioning was that the internet was replaced by this VR world, and everyone is always going there to do everything from gaming to research to whatever. And this is, of course, this extreme dystopian, over-exaggerated vision of how it could look like. And the example with Bitcoin is not that bad. It was promised that we will have some decentralized currency, and we kind of have it, but it does not work like a currency. We are not using it as a currency. But still, this technology is there, and we can now start using it for the use cases where it makes sense to use decentralized logic and assets. Yeah, and the same thing with NFTs. NFTs are a great thing. But what we are doing right now is charging 20,000 euros for virtual ownership of a JPEG. That's, yeah, you can do this, but it does not make any sense. This is not the real value of what you can do with non-fungible tokens. Yeah, but still, the technology is there, and now we can start using it for use cases that might make sense.
Yeah, it's not even clear if you own the JPEG, right? You just own the token.
Right.
And the rights is another thing. And why did you call Ready Player One a dystopian future? So I can't understand it. So this is like a future I really would love to have. It's like right now, if I take on VR glasses and I watch a movie in VR, just like I'm sitting in a virtual on a virtual couch where I have a big screen in front of me and watch Netflix. It's the colors are so much better than reality. And then I take off my VR goggles and I'm like, oh, everything is so gray. Where's all the color gone? And that's it, right? So it's not really dystopian. It's what we make out of it. It could be also a great future. So in episode 1, we talked about me going to like EMS gym, like an electromagnetic muscle stimulation suit. And I have a personal trainer who says, okay, now go down, do a squat, do whatever. And I imagine just being in the metaverse later on, having a personal trainer who's also in the metaverse wearing his VR stuff is watching me and can see my whole avatar and can see my posture because like it's very detailed with the suit I have on, and I can do my EMS training just right off my home. It's the same suit maybe, which I will use to get haptic feedback for other games, and I will wear the suit, have my goggles on, I can use it for sports, I can use it for other stuff. That's not dystopian, it's great, because nowadays you're having Peloton bikes where I sit on, and you have like maybe a 20-inch screen, and you can watch a trainer, and he can maybe he has a camera, but a lot of people don't want to be seen directly. But if you have an avatar, this gives you another personality, another thing. So it gives you maybe more confidence in doing stuff.
Yeah, this is one of the perfect examples of where you have a real measurable benefit from this new technology. And this is exactly one of the use cases where I'm very sure that people will develop hardware and software for, because this gives you a real benefit which was not possible before. And the same thing was, for example, watching a movie. I tried watching movie in VR, and it's bad because the VR headsets don't have the same resolution as my high resolution TV screen. It's still a better experience to watch it on the TV screen. So why should I do it in VR? Of course I can have like my best friend sitting virtually on my couch next to me. Cool. Yeah. But it's still weird, and it's like an avatar. It's not realistic. But at a certain point of time, the technology will be strong enough to maybe replace this or create a hybrid experience. I could imagine, for example, wearing my, Apple AR glasses, and they detect that I am watching a TV right now. And there are these TVs with, ambient light. So depending on what is happening on the screen, it shows dynamic lights, and it kind of extends the TV experience to the wall behind it. It's a gimmick. You don't need it to watch TV, but it makes the experience a little bit more vivid and the field of view a little bit more big. And the same thing could happen with your AR glasses. Your glasses see that you are watching this show and extend the screen by light effects or additional information or whatever. And this is simply a matter of convenience. Does everyone need to have this to watch TV? No, of course not. But I could use this to extend the TV experience. Or maybe I take a look to the right, and then I see you virtually sitting on this couch because you're sharing this Netflix experience with me at the same time, right? And so those are these small things that might extend the experience without having to go into this VR world with a complete body and do everything. It's just like one small service.
Yeah. By the way, you lost your bet. Apple did not announce their Apple VR glasses.
I know.
And the other thing is, yes, that's the reason why I don't watch Netflix in VR. And a sad thing about if we have the metaverse and you do Netflix and chill virtually is less babies, because a lot of people use this for other things. And the other thing is why it's Web3. Maybe this is the only legit term. I think metaverse, okay, this is like marketing stuff, but Web3 could be a thing. Maybe it's not right now, but how did the internet start? Someone created protocols, standardized it, and published it as open source, and everybody could use it. And then a lot of people just started using it. Before there was proprietary protocols. So there were network stuff, especially in the military and for research, where you could somehow dial into different servers and have access, but there was no standard for it. And then the internet came in being. And the same is true with Web3 or maybe the metaverse. Maybe the metaverse is just term for all the stuff, a super term for all the stuff which is standardized VR and gaming stuff. Because right now there are two very popular games. Roblox, which is kind of Minecraft graphic style where you could build different games in the game. So part of the game is building kind of games and so on. And the other very popular game nearly everybody is playing is Fortnite. So both are classic games, but could be played in VR. The issue is the graphic style is totally different. It's like totally different games. And the only thing they have in common, if you play them on like a Windows machine, is DirectX. So obviously DirectX was a standardization. So you could develop video games which work on all graphic cards. And the same could be true with the metaverse. Maybe this is a standard developed so that you have a standard for your avatar and for interacting with the environment. A new kind of DirectX successor, but more like a kind of similar, a mixture between DirectX and the internet protocols. You have a new family of protocols which allow you to define your avatar in Roblox and use the same avatar with maybe a nice cape you have or like scars, because obviously graphics is getting better and better with the new Unreal Engine. It's nearly photorealistic again. So, and this could be then just be transferred. And then someone in Israel is creating a new meeting software, which is so cool. You're just using your avatar. And similar to Ready Player One, because everyone has a different avatar. You can go to a library, read books, and you could change your avatar with like different stuff and in-game purchases. And I imagine, this lagged part of the metaverse to be standardization. And it's already happening. So, Meta, the company from Mark Zuckerberg, they didn't just say, okay, we are now building this. They said, no, we want everyone on a table, and they invited everyone. Apple is still missing on the standardization table, but it's similar.
As always.
Yes, but it's similar to the committee standardizing internet technologies. So That's what they actually want to create. Obviously, they want to sell their VR headsets, but the other part is also legit.
I love this example, and when you said avatar and rendering and graphics, I immediately thought about HTML, and I could imagine that maybe my representation of my asset or my avatar is described in some kind of markup, I don't know, 3D virtual markup language stored in my NFT that I own on the blockchain, and this is read by Roblox or by Minecraft, and based on the Minecraft rendering system, they use this markup language to render my avatar with all my properties and all the behavior that is attached to this avatar in their respective environment. And so I might have like this pixel Minecraft avatar with the same properties, and it looks completely different than in the other worlds, but with the same properties interpreted by the rendering engine. It might have a green shirt and, I don't know, a ridiculous hat, but those markup descriptions of ridiculous hat are then interpreted by the rendering engine, and so it is then displayed in the other world in this respective way, exactly as you have the same website with the same markup. It might look slightly different in a different browser because this one interprets the markup in a different way. It will work similarly, but it might be a slightly different experience.
Yeah, it's the same with DNS, domain name service. So this is a standardized protocol to find actually the server and access that you wanted, because there are obviously numbers you could type in, but it's not going to work. So if you want to go to, I don't know, Our podcast is tie-pod.com. This is like a domain name you're entering, and the same could be true later with the metaverse. So how do you discover maybe a new German game or like a library, like national library, which you can access? So obviously there needs to be a 3D representation where you could walk like a shared room, which is the successor of DNS. So we don't type in stuff anymore. We know places, like it's a 3D map and you could have different places in there. Obviously it's unlimited because it's web. So you have maybe virtual towns, which are our top level domains right now, like Germany and then maybe Berlin, or like USA and then New York. And then you have different parts of the city and, okay, in the virtual Berlin, in virtual Germany, in virtual Pankow, there is this new game or this new national library I want to visit. So I can somehow warp my avatar there and then walk around and I see, okay, it should be on the right, on the left. So this is a successor of DNS. I can register, like, again, it's a blockchain because we need something decentralized because nobody should own it. Right now with DNS, it's a big problem. I think there is one top-level domain which is decentralized. I think it was Bit, and there are different attempts to decentralize domain name service because that's a big issue. It's completely centralized, owned by sometimes even shady organizations. And obviously, the next iteration should be done better. So we would use blockchain technology to register actually your new space in the metaverse. Right? That's how I imagine what this standardization committee is doing. They're thinking about, okay, how is this technically working that you can register like your plot of virtual land in the metaverse and keep it for your own so that people can go there? And how can you make it right now it's a text for a domain. Later it will be a 3D model. How is it going to work? How does it integrate? That's how I imagine the future.
Yeah, to be honest, I did not even try to imagine what they are, what the details of the standards are that they are using. But it shows me that there is a shared understanding of what direction we are going to with these platforms, and this makes sense in the terms of that it's not Meta as a company who's trying to sell us their platforms, but actually, so it's not only Meta that is trying to sell us their platform, but a new generation of technology that opens up for us as users to enter this virtual space to do whatever. Yeah, and that probably we can't even imagine what the reality is going to look like with these services and what people are going to do. It's the same like back then when the smartphone was introduced and people were speculating about, I don't know, now I can read emails way faster while on the train. Yeah, of course you can do this, but this is not the big thing that is happening with smartphones in the future or the internet. Yeah, and people were like, oh, cool, now we can be like in chat rooms and talk to each other with a keyboard. Great stuff. Of course it will be, but this is not the great thing about the internet, what was happening. And the same like us right now, we are talking about, there's like virtual property and we can walk our avatar somewhere. And 10 years from now, people will laugh about us that we were speculating about avatars walking through virtual spaces and stuff. Yeah, and the reality will look completely different. And I'm just very curious to see what the details are that the next generation of users, or we, like in the next 10 years, are actually going to get out of this new realm that is opening up. And that's why I'm not so worried about, is it hype, is it not hype? I usually try to ignore all the marketing stuff and concentrate on the platforms that are actually there. And seeing this metaverse, I looked it up, the Metaverse Standards Forum, this conglomerate of companies who try to come up with some standards for interconnectivity, what they are actually building up, and seeing then the actual platforms using it for whatever they try to come up with. And I looked it up, Oasis.
Yes, Oasis, that was it.
I opened up the Wikipedia page of Ready Player One, Oasis, the ontologically anthropocentric sensory immersive simulation.
Yeah, that was not cool enough for Mark Zuckerberg. He needed something way cooler. I call it the Metaverse, and we are now Meta.
Yeah. Oh, but that another very important thing that I I always need to stress whenever I talk about the metaverse. It is the magic verse that was formulated by Magic Leap in 2018. And since I started working with this magic verse thing, I was always very biased towards this vision of basically AR representation of this virtual layer on the world. This was what Magic Leap envisioned for this magic verse, which was their version of the metaverse. And I'm always trying to look if the metaverse is simply copying this old concept of Magic Leap, of the magic verse with a new branding. But I have the feeling they concentrate way more on VR experiences, probably because that's what we have in hand right now, and of shared experiences. And even though this was also what the Magicverse kind of envisioned, but the focus on the Magicverse was always the spatial computing approach of having this virtual representation of the whole world. The whole planet is covered with multiple layers of services and data. And this was always this location-based AR services infrastructure. And I'm still waiting for the metaverse of Meta taking on this approach. Because right now we have shared virtual spaces, shared virtual experiences, people connecting, but they are not talking about this actual spatial computing approach, even though they indirectly claim it for themselves by saying, yeah, everything AR is somehow part of the metaverse. But this part is still completely ignored in all the marketing presentations that I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, but this is two different things. So when the Magicverse and the Metaverse, and when the Zuck first came out with his idea of the Metaverse, it was somehow unclear for me because a lot of the press mixed both. It's like, yeah, he's going to have everything mapped. So they could not distinguish between this spatial computing stuff where you just map the real world and have like a virtual representation somewhere of real world stuff. And okay, I own my house not only in reality, but I also bought the plot in the Magicverse. And a lot of press, when it started, I read about, thought about, okay, I actually want to build the Magicverse with spatial computing. They didn't say it, but it sounded like this. And I think like this year, you saw more people understanding that it's not spatial computing, that it's not just mapping the reality and age coordinate on the reality into VR or AR. It's something different. It's actually standardization. And I think this helped me understand what it actually is. So thinking of two different things, the Magicverse and the Metaverse. So they're both trying different things. They are having similar technologies, but it's not really possible to get everything under one hood. So I also don't think that what Meta is doing is aiming at spatial computing. They're aiming at VR equipment because that's what they're also building in hardware, and that's what they want to sell. And they want to create more like Ready Player One stuff, where it's like a complete new world, independent from the current world. And what the Magic Leap is trying to do with the Magicverse is creating a mixed environment where you have reality mixed with virtual stuff. So I could like place in Leipzig I don't know, a virtual tavern, and people could just walk in there, wear their AR, augmented reality glasses, and see my tavern and say, okay, I am buying a virtual beer for whatever reason. And I don't know what you can do with it. Maybe you can use it for a video game. Don't know. So that's a different thing, right? And if you ask me what I believe will be successful, I think Magic Leap is dying. AR will never be a thing. It's a bridge technology. And what Meta is doing in 10 years will be the future.
I disagree. In this direction, I disagree. I believe that they are not mutually exclusive. And when we talk about these open interfaces, and we already know that VR and AR, they both utilize things like the Unreal Engine or this kind of this kind of 3D rendering software. It's all the same, but displayed in a different way. And with these open standards, I could imagine that it does not matter if I'm sitting in a VR conference room or the other person on the other side sitting in this real conference room and have simply a virtual representation of my avatar sitting on the what's it called, chair next to him. It could be the same meeting, even though people are entering from different perspectives, and one could wear the Magic Leap glasses, the other one could wear the Oculus glasses. I think this is totally possible, and I think this is where we are going to go. And the other thing where I disagree is that I would place my money on AR technology, because it is true that where we are right now, VR is the dominant technology because we already own it and it works. This is what we are already seeing, that what we already can earn money with. VR is the thing for today. But in terms of convenience and the thing that everyone is going to own at some point in the future, this is going to be AR technology from my point of view. The smartphone will be replaced by AR-based or wearable-based technology. VR will be this corner technology which will work perfectly, but in a very limited use case. This use case where I put on these glasses to enter a virtual space, but 90% of my everyday life will happen in everyday environment where I have some kind of augmented device. It might be augmented audio device that gives me like Alexa on the go, or it might be something that gives me a HUD display in my glasses while I walk the street. And I think this one will be the big thing that will cover the masses, where 95% of people on the street, as they are doing it today with smartphones, will have some AR devices, but not 95% of the people will spend their time in VR. That's why I would bet on AR technology.
Yeah, I totally disagree. So I 100% disagree. So if I think about the majority of people, they don't want to have they want to work from home, but they don't want the desk and all the, you need like a home office, actually a dedicated room. And also there are people who are not that fortunate as we are with like owning a big apartments and having the space actually. So I'm thinking about India, developing countries, Africa. It's more likely that they will have cheap VR glasses, which gives them access to like a virtual desktop PC and virtual libraries and stuff. So it's more likely that everyone, especially in the developing countries, will just put on their VR goggles, sit somewhere where it's comfortable, and do all their stuff through VR. So because AR, obviously it's hot outside, they don't want to go anywhere. So you could go just into a library where it's quiet, put on your VR goggles and not use a laptop, but use your VR goggles to work on stuff. So maybe they are as fancy that it's a mixed device for AR, VR. So as seen in Star Trek Picard Season 2, where they used the Magic Leap AR goggles to actually use them as VR goggles. They worked as VR goggles, but they looked like AR stuff. So maybe it's like more like typical glasses right now, but you will be like completely in 360 degrees VR. So they need to like completely be closed, but maybe really small ones. So that's how I imagine it, because for most people, it's way more practical than owning a laptop, owning like screens you need for video editing, right? You need a very big screen. If you are in VR, you don't need to buy the screen. You just need the VR goggles. And especially in India, I'm also like a pro bono mentor. And I have a lot of people coming from Arabic countries, or some from India or Chinese, who are asking how to get into tech, how can I go to Europe and so on. And they all have like very cheap hardware, bad internet connections and stuff. And they're just in a cafe, sometimes talking to me where they have Wi-Fi. And it's more likely that especially in those countries where they don't have fast internet at home, they will be maybe in the library, maybe in a cafe where you have fast internet, wearing their VR goggles and doing the stuff they need to do, maybe for their studies, for their work, for leisure, whatever. That's how I imagine it. It will not be augmented reality, because then you will have this environment around you. It will be real VR.
I thought so too, until I owned a VR headset. And this does not mean that I don't love using this VR headset, but the use cases that I'm actually using it for became smaller and smaller, because it is an inconvenience if you have better ways to doing your tasks. And for example, using a virtual keyboard. I always thought, this would be so cool. But in reality, my fingers perform way better on physical keyboards. So I will probably never exchange my physical keyboard with a virtual keyboard. The same thing with screens. I always thought, exactly as you described, I can create my virtual screen environment as complex and as powerful as I want to in virtual spaces. In reality, it is simply more convenient to use displays on my desk, because then I can see also my phone and my desk, my cup of coffee that is standing next to me, and I don't spill it because for some reason it kind of had a lag or something like that while I was moving my head or something like this. And so the one use case you described was very good. If I can't afford a room and a desk and a screen setup and a high-end physical keyboard, then it might be that my $200 VR glasses replace all of that, and it's way cheaper than creating like a whole office with hardware. This is a use case that could actually be, but this sounds like the budget option of having a high-tech working space, not the preferred option of how to create a setup that fits best to my working experience.
Yeah, but you described like right now, the present, not the future. So in the future, obviously, you will have a power glove or like stuff like Tony Stark and Iron Man has, where he can just use his hands freely to interact with stuff. So you won't use a virtual keyboard. Why would you use a virtual keyboard? That's like old school stuff, like is 200 years old, because even the keyboard layout comes from really mechanical keyboards and it's not ergonomic, the layout we have right now. This is like a piece of bridge technology until we don't need keyboards anymore. Same is true of a mouse. If I have like 10 fingers, I want to really use my 10 fingers to do stuff, use my voice, maybe do some corrections and so on. So in 10 years, you won't have a keyboard because you don't need it. You have other stuff for it, right? And the same is true with the resolution. Obviously, the headsets in 2030 will be way more fancy. That's like 8 years of technology progression. Think about what stuff you had 8 years ago, like the monitor sizes, your TV sizes, the speed of your smartphone, internet connections, and so on. And now think 8 years in the future, but everything is going faster and faster in this iteration, so it will be even more fancy. That's why I believe in it. I believe in technology.
If you find a concept that is more efficient than the keyboard, then I agree that it will replace the keyboard. But moving stuff with my hands in a virtual space is not as efficient as using a keyboard shortcut, which is a fraction of a second where my fingers are moving. My fingers are very, very quick on this physical keyboard. Show me a concept that is more efficient than that, then I agree, then this will probably replace it. But until that, it is a really inconvenience to use UI interfaces like this. And that's why I'm thinking, was my experience. I was expecting that, but so far I did not see even a concept that worked better than the movement of my fingers. And you're right, if the ergonomic keyboard or the keyboard layout is bad thing and someone actually comes up, let's say Apple as a trendsetter comes up with a new keyboard layout and all cool people will start this new keyboard layout, then this will dominate the market and all keyboards will adjust. Then this is like a real evolutionary step of the keyboard. But in VR, I did not see a concept yet that was actually more practical than the physical keyboard. That's why I'm still skeptical about what might happen in VR. And I did not see a concept, even a concept yet, not the implementation, but the concept yet that would replace the keyboard.
I saw one concept once for different stuff, which was like kind of a small Kinect, a 3D scanner, which you put on the top of your monitor, your display, and then it would recognize hand gestures. So, and again, Star Trek Picard Season 2, you need to watch it. It's great, way better than Season 1, in my opinion. And what they had in the old Star Trek episodes, which was touchscreens, where they even did the ship's navigation on touchscreens, which I thought, okay, this is totally impractical. So you need like the haptic feedback from different stuff, which you could use way more efficient to like navigate your ship. Touchscreens, that's stupid. But in like Star Trek Picard Season 2, you saw a new way of navigating a ship, like kind of Tony Stark does again. He just used his hands and there was different stuff visible, like maybe again AR, VR goggles. You saw your hands and you could use your fingers and hand to navigate your ship, and he used his hands to navigate the ship, which made sense to me. And this is what I imagine the future. Yes, we don't have it right now, but we also don't have the metaverse right now. That's stuff for the future. That's again why I think it's not legit right now, because it will take another 10 years with all the VR stuff. The only thing which I would say is legit is to be used is the term Web3. So I hope it will become a term everyone understands, as this is the term for all this new technology: VR, AI standardization, blockchain stuff, smart contracts, cloud computing, or not blockchain computing, like what Ethereum does. So this should be the term used for all this new stuff where we say, okay, this is Web3. We don't want this old stuff. It's a completely new thing. I even think Web3 is a wrong term. We would need a new term. That's why maybe Mark Zuckerberg is trying to get this term Metaverse into usage, because Web3 still sounds like this is new technology for the web. It's not, it's maybe using the internet, but it's not the classic web you're knowing. So any last thoughts?
Yeah, and I think, my last thought is exactly that, that when we engineers talk about these technologies, it is a way different perspective than the marketing speech that we always see. But when you see what happens when the blockchain craze happened and the stock prices for everything blockchain related came up, and the same thing with Metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg said Metaverse, and everyone puts the word Metaverse in this company name, and stock prices go up. It works, and so people will keep doing that and invent weird marketing terms simply to market their products. And so this is going to happen, and we will always have a lot of topics to discuss and to define and educate our viewers and listeners about what is hype and what is reality and technologically makes sense. And so that's why I personally enjoy listening to Mark Zuckerberg, because it gives us so much material and so many open questions that we can then answer. And so I'm very thankful for all the marketing hype that is happening out there.
Yes, and it reminds me of the other episode. How is it like working for an American company? That's kind of what defines great American company culture, that they think and dream big and try to sell you this one. In a German company, when they would start talking about, we have this metaverse, then it would be nearly done. Everything is already standardized. They don't sell you the dream. But this is also like a thing you need for a real innovation. You need to define it first, think big before it actually comes into reality. You need to imagine it to get it into reality. That's the way you do it with all the things. You first need to think, I'm an athlete. There's this great book, Atomic Habits, which defines the mental state also and other things you need to be to get into these habits. And the first thing is really thinking about it, imagining it. And the same is true with the metaverse. If you want to have something like this metaverse, you need to first define it in your head, think about it, and try to sell it. And that's a great thing about American companies, that they do it that way. Yes, with all the hype stuff. Okay, right. Yeah. Sometimes the hype is annoying, but again, it's entertaining. It's also entertainment in some parts, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, sure. Entertaining. It's true. Yeah, and I'm always enjoying this futuristic point of view of what could be and what is realistic and what will actually happen. So let's wrap this up and talk about the next episode, which is going to come out next week, depending on when this one came out. And this time we actually got a question from one of our regular viewers. And this one was how we judge our engineers. Should we count lines of codes, for example, to actually see how engineers are performing and who one to fire and which one to... what's the word?
To promote.
To promote. I'm always thinking about firing people.
Yeah.
Promote. No, it's just the English word that was missing. Sorry. Yeah, but this is a very, very interesting question. And I'm sure that we too have at least 3 different opinions about how to judge engineers.
Yeah, I alone have 3 different opinions on every topic. So, yeah, look forward to it. See you again next week on the same spot at the same time. Have a nice week.
See you there. Bye.